السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. فأينما تكونوا يدرككم الموت ولو كنتم في بروج مشيدة. وقال تعالى: كل نفس ذائقة الموت. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام: حق المسلم على المسلم ستة إلى آخره. صدق الله وصدق رسوله الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين. My dear respected elders, brothers and sisters, firstly we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has indeed afforded us the opportunity to be here in this discussion so that we'll remind ourselves of a very important duty that we must do as believers. And it is hope, inshallah, that our topic of discussion today, and that is concerning some of the masails, some of the ahkam, the laws of janazah, and those things that are related to it, that inshallah it will be something of great worth and value to each and every one of us. Firstly, we understand that death is something which each and every one of us must one day undertake. We will go through the door of death. There is no doubt about it. In fact, the Quran refers to death as being al-yaqeen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ, and worship your Lord until yaqeen, ay maut, death, comes unto you. So it is a surety. It is a surety that death is going to come to us. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran, فَأَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يُدْرِكُمُ الْمَوْتِ, that wheresoever you are, wheresoever you may be, death will indeed catch you. It would indeed reach you. It would search you out. وَلَوْ كُنْتُمْ فِي بُرُوجٍ مُشَيَّدَةٍ, even though you may be in fortified castles and palaces. Wheresoever you are, death is surely going to find you. These are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the law of life, the law of those things which have been created, is that it must undergo death again. Another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ, that every soul will taste of death. So, for you and I, we understand, we know, we believe that one day death is going to come to us. So today's discussion, inshallah, it should be a reminder, a remembrance for us that inshallah we should prepare for that ultimate time. And as part of the preparation for death is to also prepare those who are around us as well. Isn't that so? To prepare our spouses, our children, our relatives, our friends, our neighbors. We remind them, and for some we have a greater responsibility in that we also want that they fulfill their duties unto us when it is that we would have traveled beyond this worldly life into the akhirah, into that state of barzakh. And we all want that. How much of us would want that when we pass away, It is our children. They are the ones who are bathing us. That they are the ones who are fulfilling all of our duties, all of the duties that has to be performed, that final rites, rather than you have to get someone else to come and do it for you. You would feel happy knowing that they are the ones who are fulfilling it. So it therefore requires some sort of preparation to a certain extent with respect to getting them prepared for it. And one best way of doing so is by means of educating them, teaching them the different laws, the different procedures and duties that are there. There are several hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that speaks about the rights of Muslims. Many of them starts Haqqul Muslimi ala al-Muslim, that the right of a Muslim to another Muslim, and some mention Arba'ah, 4, some mention Khamsa, some mention Sitta. Understand? 4, 5, 6, that there are duties and there are rights that must be fulfilled by one Muslim to another. Amongst them, you have all of these hadith reiterating the point of visiting a person when he is sick. So it is a right of one Muslim that he should visit another Muslim when that Muslim is sick. First. Another one of these is the attending to his Janazah. In that when a person passes away, he attends the Janazah, he performs that funeral prayer for that person. And some hadith mentions following of the Janazah, in that he accompanies this person in this Janazah until he is buried. And we see that these three things are definitely associated to the period just before death, at the time of death, and afterwards, what are the things that should be done. So inshallah, our discussion tonight, and this reminder for us, we will also focus on some of these things. One, it is at the time when a person is sick, identifying the time of death, when the actual signs of death appears upon a person. What should we do? So from the time of his sickness until that point of death. Then secondly, we have the period from his death until when this person is prepared for the Janazah Salah. And then we have the Janazah Salah. And lastly, we have the burial of the person, what should be done. And along with these, there are other masails and so on that come upon it, practices that people will do. What are the laws put into some of these things? So firstly, as we mentioned, when a person is sick, it is a sunnah that a person, other Muslims, should visit that sick person. And the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was his practice, and it was the practice of the companions radhiyallahu anhum, that they would also visit the sick. In a hadith, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, and this is found in Muslim, that when a true believer visits his brother in faith, his Muslim brother, he is in a way in the garden of paradise until he returns. In another narration, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that when a person visits a sick person in the morning, then 70,000 angels invokes mercy on the visitor until the evening. And whosoever visits a sick person in the evening, then 70,000 angels, they will make supplication of mercy for that visitor until the morning. And he shall also have a garden in paradise. Subhanallah. Is there indeed very beautiful reward for a person for that act of visiting the sick? No, but when a person goes to visit the sick, it is important that his etiquette and his behavior be according to the sunnah as well. That it must be of a desirable nature. So therefore, when a person goes, You should greet the person and then inquire about his health. You should visit the sick when needed and not at any special time. In other words, sometimes a person, they fix a time. You know, you fix your time. This is my time and I have put aside for visiting the sick. But that might not be the best time for the sick person. Is that so? So it should be when it is needed. When it is that he is there, he should avoid loud noises such that he can disturb the person. He should stay as brief as possible without delaying. The objective is to visit, not to stay with him. Understand? So therefore, be as brief as possible so that you will not cause any sort of inconveniences to him. When a person is there as well, he should encourage him with words of hope and encouragement and so on. And he should avoid careless and insensitive speech. Now, if for instance, a person says, you know, you're sick already, just now your time will come to an end. You know, just now you got dead, so you're leaving this somewhere else. You know, you should avoid insensitive things. Rather, say things of encouragement to the person. That inshallah you're going to feel well. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He would, you know, remove your sins by means of this. He would elevate your status. You must have patience. Inshallah, you know, there will be relief. These type of words. Rather than trying to discourage the person, or that the person, you know, he says things which are of an insensitive nature. Okay? In fact, there's a report from Salma that the Prophet ﷺ said, when you visit the sick person or someone else on his deathbed, say what is good. As the angels, they say Ameen to that. Okay? So you go to visit a person, say that which is good, rather than, you know, things of discouragement or of insensitive nature. A person can also present some gift. But of course, you know, a person has diabetes and you're going to bring him a nice, sweet chocolate cake. What you're causing there? More harm to the person, because now you need to dribble, as we will say, and you cannot eat of it, okay? So you will not go and do something like that. So something that is proper for the person, okay? One should avoid forcing the sick person to eat or drink. Sometimes, you know, when you go there, say, here, eat his head, so you're going to force him, put something down his throat. No, we should do this. Again, this can cause inconvenience to the person. The visiting of the sick, etiquette should be sincerely for the sake of Allah. It should not be for alternative motives. So you heard such and such a person, he is a very affluential person, he is wealthy, so now is a good time to visit him. At least he will say, you know, I came and visited when he was down and he is sick. Perhaps he would leave something for me. So the motive is not good. Is that so? Therefore, the motive should only be for the pleasure of Allah, to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, we must request from the sick person that he should also make dua for us. As in one narration, the Rasul had mentioned that when you go to visit a sick person, ask him to pray for you. For his dua is like that of the angels. Now, a person, when he goes to visit the sick, he should also make dua on behalf of the sick person. In one narration, the Rasul he mentioned that the Rasul he used to place his right hand on the forehead of the sick person, on the spot that was hurting, and he would say this dua, Allahumma adhib al-ba'sa rabban nas, ishfi anta shafi, la shifa illa shifa'uka, shifa'an la yughadiru saqamah. That, oh Allah, you remove the pain. Oh Allah, heal, for you are the healer. There is no healing except your healing, such perfect healing that leaves no traces of disease. Or we can say a simple dua like, Allahumma shfihi, Allahumma afihi. Oh Allah, you cure him from his sickness. Oh Allah, you keep him safe and sound. So these are some basic etiquettes that are there with respect to visiting of the sick. Okay? Now this is prior to a person when he is in that, you know, in the throes of death. Perhaps he is very sick, he is ill. Not that he is in the throes of death itself. Okay? Of course, we can visit him at that time too. But these are some etiquettes for generally visiting the sick. So before we move on, are there any questions or so based upon what we have done there? All right, so let's take it at a new level. So now the person, he was sick. We visited him, mashallah, very good. We hope that Allah would have rewarded. Okay? Now the person is upon such a state that he is, as we would say, on his deathbed. He is now going to undergo the throes of death. Okay? Now a person in the throes of death is called a muhtadar. In Arabic, muhtadar. And this literally means that one in whose presence others have arrived. And with this interpretation, in this context of janaiz, when we refer to a person as being a muhtadar, it means that in this person's presence, death has arrived, or the angel of death has arrived. So some of the veils of ghaib are now starting to be removed from this person. Okay? Now the signs of death which should become apparent on a person, and many of the books of fiqh have mentioned these. Okay? Mentioned that person should look for these things. One, the legs become relaxed, slack, limp. In other words, a person cannot again hold up his own weight. He has lost control of the strength of his legs. It has become relaxed and slack and limp. Okay, first sign. Secondly, his breathing becomes heavy. There will be rapid breathing, in that type of manner. It should be fast and erratic. Then another sign is that the nose becomes twisted and slightly bent. The nose of a person becomes twisted either side and becomes slightly bent. And the fourth sign is that the temples of a person start to subside and sag. In other words, it sort of it draws in, so to say. It subsides. And the last thing here that have been mentioned is that the skin of the person becomes stretched. And you see, sometimes a person, if anyone would have witnessed it, at that time there's a kind of stretching that takes place. Now, sometimes when we kill animals, okay, like in Qurbani time, we look out for the last stretch, isn't that so? And we saw that, okay, he's almost dead. Before that, we say he still has some life in him still. There's a similar thing with us as humans as well. At that point when the ruh is about to come out, there is a stretching of the limbs and the skin itself. Okay? So these are some of the signs that will be upon a person when he is very close to dying. At this time of death, it is sunnah to turn the muhtadar on his right side with his face towards the Qibla. So for instance, here we have the Qibla towards the east. Then it is best, it is sunnah, that the head of the deceased, if it is in a situation like this here, that the head be towards the south, the feet towards the north, okay? And that the person be turned on his right, facing the Qibla. Okay? That is sunnah. It is also permissible that the person who is a muhtadar, that person who is in the throes of death, that he can also lie on his back with his feet stretched towards the Qibla. So it's like, similar like when a person is severely sick or so, and, time for salah, what is done is that you put him on a bed with his feet itself facing towards the Qibla and some pillow or cushion or so behind him, that he faces the direction and he can perform salah in that manner. So here it is that a person, he is about to die, And for that respect and that honor, that he should also be facing towards the direction of the Qibla. Okay? Now, this second position has been adopted by many of the jurists because it is more convenient. Okay? It is easier and it is more widely applied, so to say. Okay? Now, suppose now the person who is about to die, the muhtadar, he feels uncomfortable in any of these positions here, these two positions. What must we do? Take a rope and tie him down? Say, no, you have to face this. No, we will not do such. Okay? We'll leave him in whatever position, whichever position he feels comfortable in. Okay? Without emphasizing or forcing him into any particular position. Now, at this point in time, we must do what is known as the talqeen. It is mustahab to do talqeen. Okay, what is talqeen? Talqeen is to prompt the dying person to say the testimony or the shahada. It is to prompt him. So therefore, one would recite the shahada such that the person can hear, and this now becomes a prompt to him, an incentive to him, to incite him towards reciting the same, because many times if we hear something, then our lips have to move along with the same thing. Okay? The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions in a hadith, لَقِّنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مُسْلِمٌ يَقُولُهَا عِنْدَ الْمَوْتِ إِلَّا أَنْجَدْهُ مِنَ النَّارِ. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that prompt the dying among you to say La ilaha illallah. There is no one worthy of worship but Allah. But there is no Muslim who says it except that it saves him from the fire. This hadith is found in Muslim Sharif. There is also another hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Man kana akhiru kalamihi la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah. That whosoever his last words are La ilaha illallah, this person, he will enter into the paradise. So these are hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam informs us of the doing of the talqeen. So how is this called? Talqeen. Say that everyone. Talqeen. Okay. Now the method of talqeen, how it should be done. The method of talqeen is that those who are present around the muhtadar, the person who is dying, right, they will recite the shahadatain, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, or they can say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, and they should say it in this manner, okay, in a loud manner, so that it reaches the ears of the dying person. It should not be shouted out, that it becomes a disturbance to others. So you're in a room, but the neighbor across the road could hear it. No, it is not that. It's that you say it in such a way that the person who is in this state, he hears you, and that's the objective. He can hear it, and with that now, he would also recite it as well. Now, if it is that people would have come earlier than the signs of death appear on the person, then he should not start the talqeen. They should not start the talqeen at that time. You know, a person, he is talking and he has all of his consciousness, everything. You don't go and start the talqeen in that sense. We can ask, you know, Ghufranaka ya Rahman, can say certain du'as, seeking forgiveness of Allah, okay? Or astaghfirullah alladhi la ilaha illallahu wa atubu ilayk. Du'as like that can be said at that time, so that the person now, he can do tawbah. Understand? He has his consciousness. He can do tawbah in this state, seeking the forgiveness of Allah for whatever sin that he may have done. But then there is no surety that after that he is going to that state of the throes of death. Many a time we think that a person is going to die, and what happened? The outlasts, the people who, you understand, are thinking that they will die. Okay? So it's only when they are upon that state, when they are classified as being a muhtadar, okay, and we see the signs of death have appeared upon them, that the talqeen should be started. Now the Muslim, the muhtadar, he should not be forced, not commanded to recite testimony. No, like you are saying it and he is not responding, so you go and you start shaking, boy, say this thing, boy, say this, la ilaha illallah, and you're going to force and command him in that manner. It should not be done. Okay? But there should be the continuous reciting of it until when he says it. Now when it is that he says it, and he says the shahadatain, the talqeen should stop. Those who are wrong who are saying it, they should halt with it, because the objective is that you want his last words to be La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and he has done that. Okay? Now if afterwards he started to talk other things, of mundane things, worldly things, started to talk and mention about, well, the business, who will take the money, and what is going to happen here, and this, and he started to speak about worldly matters. I was so concerned about my child education, and those type of things. Then the talqeen should start again. Understand? One should start again with the recitation of the kalima, until when he would have said it. And if he said it again, then it should stop. There should not be a continuous thing that, even though he would have said it, that you continue saying it so that the last breath that escapes from his lip is actually the kalima. Okay? That sometimes, that continuous thing may even irritate him to a certain extent. And then he might say something, Allah Hoshna, or he started to rebuke other people around him, because it is now gone into a state whereby you are irritating him. Okay? So once he would have said it, you hold, you stop. Now, it is mustahab that the person who is doing the talqeen, that he should not be suspected of being happy and delighted with this person's death. Understand? Just imagine a person, they say this, and he's so happy that this man is going to die. And this person in this state, he is sensing this. What do you think his response is going to be? You're going to tell him something. Okay? So it should not be like that. But rather, there should be a certain amount of seriousness, reminder of akhirat, recitation of the kalima, this sort of thing. Even at this point, when a person would have said it, those who are around him as well, they should also avoid speaking about worldly things. Okay? So that if the person were to die at any point now, it would be as though he would have died with the kalima being his last words. Okay? Now it is also mustahab that Surah Yasin be read. It is narrated from Maqal ibn Yasir that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Iqra'uha inna mawtakum," yani Yasin. Says that recite it, upon your dying ones. Recite Surah Yasin when someone is dying from amongst you. And yani, what is it that he was referring to? Surah Yasin. So one should recite that. Also, there is a narration from Hazrat Jabir that Surah Ra'd, thunder, that it should also be recited at that time when a person is in the throes of death. It is mentioned that إِنَّهَا تُهَوِّنُ عَلَيْهِ خُرُوجَ الرُّوحِ, but verily it eases for him the emergence of the soul. So what are these two surahs? Surah Yasin and Surah Ra'd. These two surahs can be recited. Now, it is also mustahab that relatives, friends, neighbors, and pious people be around the person who is a muhtadar, the dying person. Now, this is in order to mention good things and advices and to fulfill his needs. Like, for instance, he would want some water, he would recognize someone, relative or friend or so, and he would request it. Okay? One should find it within themselves if at that time the dying person utters something of rebuke to them, or he says something which they may not like, they would dislike it, that they should forgive him and that they should consider that that is as a result of that state of death, that he has lost his conscience, that he is not, firm in what he is saying. Even some of the scholars have even mentioned that under this state, if it is that he would say something that resembles, I'm talking about after his conscious state. We know that this person, some people say he's traveling already. Sometimes we mention this statement. He has lost his consciousness, okay? But he is still uttering certain things. If it is that he would even say something that even resembles kufr, one should not regard that as actual kufr itself, but rather it should be considered as though he is now in that state which is very painful, that state of death, that he has lost his consciousness, that what was said there was not under any conscious statement that he would have made from his heart that can actually lead to kufr. And all of the rights of janazah and for a Muslim, it should be fulfilled, even if something like that would have been said. Okay? Now, those who are around him, it is better that they be in a state of cleanliness, okay? Or that they should not be in a state of uncleanliness. It is better if they are in a state of cleanliness, that they are wudu or whatnot. And it is better that they are not in a state like, they're in a state of janaba, or in a state that is of major sexual impurity, or that they're in a state of haid, like in the case of women on nifas, that is the postnatal bleeding, menstruation, and after childbirth bleeding. It is best that those who are in this state, they remain a little aloof from him at that time. Of course, the scholars have mentioned, some of them have mentioned, that if it is that the muhtadar, he feels comfortable with these people, then there is no problem with it. Okay? Because sometimes it is mentioned that the angels tend to stay away when people are upon this type of state as well. So it is better that they stay away. But if there is no one who can fulfill the required needs, like for instance, a man, his wife is there, she's in a state of haid or menstruation, and he really feels that affection to her, she's the one who can fulfill whatever needs that he has at this state, and he feels comfortable with her, then based upon that now, it is allowed, okay, that she can be around. Now a person, he utters his last word of kalima, and then he dies. What is the next step? Those who are around, what is it that they should say? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So we have reached to the point when the person dies. Okay, so we discussed from the point where he was on the throes of death. Now he has passed away. Any questions with respect to anything, within this period? Now, if you wait until the end, you'll definitely forget many of the things that we would have discussed. So that's why I'm asking you all as we go along. Any questions or so? Huh? The sisters as well. Are there any questions? All right. Suppose now it is a woman who is dying. I'm just only bringing forward some new masalas, hoping that some of these things probably would have asked. Okay. Suppose now it's a woman who is dying, and there is no mahram to her present. Mahram are those close relationships to a woman with whom she cannot contract a marriage. Okay? So her son is not around, her father is not around, her brothers are not around, and there are no women. What should be done? A male passes by and realizes that this woman is in that state. Should he go and do talqeen for her? Should he go and, in what manner? Because you must respect the rights of Islam as regarding the separation and the parda. You understand? Maintaining that separation between males and females. So what should be done upon such a state? The scholars have mentioned that he can do the talqeen, can recite the shahada, but like behind a veil or so, or sit down in a direction not actually facing her, whereby, the parda has been maintained, but the objective is that he wants her to recite it, and that's it. There is no touching of the hands, fixing her hair, pulling the sheet of her. No, that is not for him to do. Okay? He don't get involved in that. But he can say it like behind a veil or so. Okay? Suppose now the person who is about to die is a dumb person, and he cannot recite the kalima. Okay? With the actual words itself. How should the talqeen be done? In that case, there will be some sort of sign that should be presented to him, which should indicate the oneness of Allah. Like for instance, person could face him and put one Allah, one, indicate with the index, the one Allah, like that. And that now becomes a reminder for him that he should say it within himself. Or if it is that he can read, you write the kalima and you show it to him. So some indication that actually becomes a reminder for him of the oneness of Allah. Okay, the shahada. Any questions? All right, let's continue. MashaAllah. So the person is now dead. What must we do? As I said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, because the passing away of someone, it is indeed a loss. Okay? Allah knows his condition better than you and I. We can only testify to the things that he would have done in this world. Allah knows actually what was in his heart, whether those things were accepted or not, whether they were done with sincerity or not. Okay? That is between him and Allah. But as a loss, as the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Quran tells us that if something happens to us, or what is that they will say, قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. So we are now adhering to that. That certainly from Allah we came, and to him is our return. And note well that this is not only to be said when someone passes away. Sometimes this concept that we must say this only when we hear a death announcement. That's not so. Anything that affects a believer is a musibat. He should say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Okay? The eyes of the mayyit should then be closed. The books of fiqh have mentioned that the person who is doing so, he can recite, for instance, Bismillahi wa ala millati Rasulillah. Okay? Bismillah, I begin in the name of Allah, while being faithful to the religion of the Messenger of Allah. And then he can say, Allahumma yassir alayhi amrahu. Oh Allah, make his affair and his matter easy for him. Wasahil alayhi ma ba'dahu. And make easy and lessen for him that which is after it. وَأَسْعِدْهُ بِلِقَائِكَ, and make him fortunate by means of your meeting. وَاجْعَلْ مَا خَرَجَ إِلَيْهِ خَيْرًا مِمَّا خَرَجَ عَنْهُ, and make that which he has departed from, departed to, better than that which he had departed from. Okay? So this is not compulsory, it's not essential, but the person can make the dua. That Allah will make it easy for him. Okay? Now, there is an important thing that we must do now. At this point, when we recognize that a person would have died, we cannot just proceed and do as we like. There is some aspect of the law of the land that we are living in and that must be fulfilled. Understand? To go and interfere with a person who have died, it may lead to an infringement of the law for which a person can be found guilty, charged, imprisoned as the case may be, or reprimanded in some way or the other. So, certain things that we must do now. Okay, and this is the practical thing. Because many a times when someone dies, we don't know what to do. The first person you call an Imam Sahib. Understand? Maulana Sahib. You know? You call somebody, the man dead, the woman has died. Okay, what should we do? So the first and foremost thing is that when a person dies, one should notify the police. Call the police. Okay? And this is in keeping with the law of the land. Different places and different countries may have their own standards. I've discussed with some of the funeral agencies, and you know, they have advised me on certain things like this, that when a person passes away, before you could start making an arrangement with anybody to come and pick up the body and do this and that and the next, what must you do? Call the police. Tell them you think that, you know, such and such individual, my mother, my father, my brother and sister, whosoever, that they have died.
They were even hitting the car and so on.
Then the police will come,
17 days had passed,
they will look at the body.
When they were
usually what happens is that if they suspect any sort of foul play,
many of the men,
any sort of criminal activity, then what is it that they would do? They would probably seize the body as well and take it for further investigation.
10,000 of his companions had deserted him on that occasion, on that time.
If not,
he decided to visit his mother.
Then what they will do is contact the DMO, the District Medical Officer.
She was about 100 years
or you yourself can do that.
Years old. Okay? She was blind.
But the first step is to inform the police, then they may inform the DMO, or they will put you on to the DMO, District Medical Officer,
I know it is eminent,
and then the DMO will declare that the person is dead before you could do anything.
He came to her, he gave her salam, she replied,
we do not know. Sometimes a person goes into a deep coma, and we think that the person has died. And sometimes we do everything and discover on time, bathing the person wake up.
What transpired?
What do you do? Run out from the place, eh?
At that moment. There's the son,
this man wake up from his dead body,
and there's the mother. She asked him.
So you need a person in the profession, the medical field. Sometimes people contact their own family doctor, or the doctor that the person was visiting all the time. And then that person, that doctor, he may contact the DMO, the District Medical Officer for the region or for that borough or that corporation, as the case may be. And then he can say, okay, the person has died. So that consent is there.
Die like your companions, otherwise
so
your death would
that has taken care of.
Then fight for it.
If, for instance, a person is transporting the person to the hospital and he dies,
this is a mother,
well, continue their transport. Take them to the hospital. The doctors there, they will.
After the conversation, he comes and he kisses his mother on her forehead.
They will do whatever is required. Understand?
When she embraces him, he feels his metal armor on his body. He says, oh my son,
from what
is this?
I have been informed,
what is this that I'm feeling?
This
is not the dress. This is not the wear of a person who is going to be
And
killed
I
in
say
the
this,
path
I mean,
of Allah.
illegal
Take
according
it
to the
off.
law to
Take it
transport
off.
any dead
Are
person in
you
your
seeking
vehicle.
to
Just
prevent death from coming
you
to
need
you? This
certain,
is not the time
like
for that.
a
This is a
funeral
mother
agency,
exhorting her son.
some funeral place,
And she tells
okay,
him,
who have
however,
that
my
right
son,
of
tie your
transporting,
izar.
that they must do so.
Tie your
Even
izar.
someone
Because
was
when you
telling
fall
me
in the path of Allah,
that if
your
it is
aura,
discovered that
your
you are
private is not
transporting a
exposed.
person like that,
This is a
they
mother.
can charge
That
you
is a son.
as much
What
as
a grandfather he
$50,000.
had, Abu Bakr
Understand?
radiallahu
There's a
ta'ala
charge
an.
that is
What a
levied
grandmother he
for
had,
that.
Safiya radiallahu
So
ta'ala an.
if it
What
is
a
that you
person
think
who
a
did his
person is
tahniq.
alive and you cry him in the
The
vehicle,
Rasul
then make
sallallahu
sure you
alayhi
think that he
wasallam
was alive when you
liked
put him in the vehicle.
beautiful
Understand?
fruits are going to be produced
Okay, and you are carrying to
from
the hospital.
strong plants, well
Understand
fertilized
what I mean?
soil.
Now,
That
a
soil
person goes to the
which
hospital and he
the
dies
weeds
there.
are
No, I'm
taken
saying
out
this because
and
we need to
fertilizer
know
is
these
put when
things.
it's necessary, and the necessary
This is what
ingredients
happens
to
when a
protect
person
it
dies,
and for it to grow
and
and bloom
we do
and
not
to
know which
blossom.
side to turn,
These
who
are
to,
the trees
who to
that will
call,
produce the fruits,
who to get
the
in
healthy
contact with.
fruits, not
Okay?
the rotten fruits.
If a person
Not
dies
the
in the
deformed
hospital,
ones,
depending upon
like this,
the
in
time that
order
you would
for
have
us
spent there,
as individuals,
usually more
as
than
a
24 hours or
community,
so,
to be
they would have
saved
had a
from all
record of his
all that which is
sickness or
around us.
whatever as
We
the
have
case
to
may
be
be.
inoculated.
And they
We
can
have
say,
to be
okay, he got a
vaccinated.
minor heart
We have
attack
to
and
be
then he got a
healthy.
major one.
Like this,
And you
inshallah,
get the
we
doctor
will be
paper, as we
protected.
say,
When we
certificate from the
emulate
hospital itself
those who
saying
were
that he
in the
died there
before,
and this was the
got
cause of
into the
death.
stage as
Okay?
it is, when we be like them. Today we are afraid to be like
If it
Sahaba.
is less than 24
These are
hours,
examples
they may
and we are
keep it
afraid
for
to be
further
like them.
investigation,
Be like them.
you know,
reap the
autopsy and
benefits
so
that
on
they
will take
receive.
place. Now,
These 3
whilst
points I would like
autopsy
to
is
leave
not
us to think
something
about. First, we need to
which
strengthen our salat.
Islam itself
Second point is,
encourages, there is a certain aspect of respect to the law
follow the
that
life
we
of
cannot,
those people
you
who
know,
are successful, who
go
are
beyond. We
protected,
cannot
who are
overpower.
not immoral. And
If
you
it
will
is
be
that
like
they
them.
keep the
And
body for the
third,
purpose
I
of
draw an
autopsy,
example of who these people
if
were.
it is that
May
you
Allah
could
subhanahu
get
wa
over
ta'ala
with it
guide us, bless us,
and that
help us
can
to
change,
fulfill our
alhamdulillah.
Muslim life, and
But
to
as
follow
it is,
the
there is
line
a law of
Sahaba.
autopsy that
وأقول
we
قولي
must go
هذا.
along with.
أستغفر الله
Okay?
لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين.
Now,
والسلام.
what happens next is that a person he can contact the funeral agency. Okay, at this point, contact the funeral agency, contact your imam or some scholar, somebody who know what to do at this stage. Now, mashallah, you all are learning some of the things that should be done at the time of death and whatnot. So, it could lessen some of the burden for the imams and so on at the same time. But it's necessary as well, because the imam will then tell you, okay, we'll try to do this. Let's see if we can work around for tomorrow after Zohar for the Janazah. So you need to get his consent. It is good that you keep him informed. As the imam of the Jamaat, he needs to know as well, so that whatever arrangement for announcement and so on can be done. Okay? It is necessary before actually burying a person that you get a doctor's letter or a certificate. So you go to the doctor, the DMO can give you a doctor's letter stating the cause of death. With this now, you then need to take it to the registrar of birth and death. Okay? You take this to the registrar of birth and death in your region or your borough. They will now make out a certificate for you. With the certificate, then you need to go like to the bank, and there is a payment, like for public cemeteries and so on, payment of a small amount, probably 200 or whatever the case may be, so that you can now go with the receipt from the bank to the person who is in charge of the cemetery, that they allot for you a plot, the area that you can dig the grave. Okay? You just can't go and start to dig from a side. Understand? This is done. If, for instance, it's like, you know, like some Muslim cemeteries, and we have that there isn't that system whereby a public person is in charge of the cemetery, but rather the Jamaat themselves is in charge of the burial. You need to consult them to ask them where to actually bury. Okay, because there will be someone perhaps in charge who will tell you, you know, you bury in the 3rd lane or in this section, because if not, you might just go and dig up a grave that was dug there last 3 months, and you would know. So you cannot just go on your own. Okay, so you understand some of the stages here. Get the doctor letter, go to the register of birth and death, get the death certificate. After that, then you need to go and pay, if it's a public cemetery, for a plot in the cemetery itself to dig the grave. You go to the person, he will appoint for you where you should dig the grave. Okay? Now, the funeral agencies and so on, you know, whatever charge or service charge that they may have, they will now have people digging the grave and so on for you, and getting like the planks of wood and making all the arrangements and so on. So they will collect the body, carry it to the funeral home in their cold freezers and what have you, until the time for the actual bathing and shrouding, until that point in time. Right? Okay, so those are some of the necessary things that should be done. Now, it might well be that a person, he wants to do it at home. Okay? Sometimes what is done, a person wants to do it at home, and he doesn't have all of the requirement. The body starts to decay and smell and whatnot. So it is recommended that, you know, you go to the funeral agencies who can store the body properly until you are ready for it. Okay, and within this time to, in fact, it's not necessarily supposed to keep a dead body at home in that manner. Okay, so what is the next step? As I said, it's a very long topic. Okay, and if certain areas you try to go too fast, then you wouldn't really benefit from it. So you know, we have to take sections as the case may be. Okay, I'll see. Yeah. But the thing about the autopsy is that it's a requirement of the law. Okay, and even though a person might make some sort of a will or write down that a signed document, I'm not too sure. You have to get some legal opinion on that. I don't think it will be something that will actually be honored, especially if the cause of death is not clear and there is suspicions and doubt in it. Okay. Now, with respect to the next stage as Muslims, is that we need to make the arrangements for bathing and shrouding and getting all the things in order. Okay. After this, after we would have gotten those documents, announcements and so on should be made. There is no particular manner of announcement. The main thing is that the information be sent out, okay, so that people attend the janazah. Okay. But we make arrangement as quickly as possible. It is mustahab that the arrangement be made as quickly as possible for the purpose of ghusl, for shrouding and burial. Okay. Now, sometimes we can only move as fast as the legal aspect of it goes. Now, if it is that the mite has any debts and so on, and he has wealth, he should also try to hasten to get it paid off, if it's possible at that time. If not, delay it until after the burial and so on. Bathing and shrouding. Now, ghusl, that is bathing of the deceased, and kafan, shrouding. So what is ghusl? The bathing of the deceased. And what is kafan? Shrouding of the deceased. Now, I forgot something before. When the person passes away, we close the eye. If the mouth is open as well, we can take a cloth and tie from above the head beneath the chin, so that it will keep the mouth shut, closed. Okay? Also, in a fear of inflating of the stomach, you know, it is something that you see in the books of fiqh and so on, that something heavy can be placed on the stomach to sort of prevent it from inflating, okay, because of the gases and whatnot. All right. So the law with respect, yeah, that is done as well, because sometimes it sort of flares out. So the toes can also be tied. Now, these things are based upon different individuals. Understand? If the mouth is already closed, there may not be any need to tie. Okay? If the person dies with his eye closed, you can't close the eye that has already been closed. Okay? So it depends upon the individual himself. If it's a female who have passed away, then other female should cover her body as quickly as possible. You understand? All right. So what is the law with respect to ghusl and kafan? So ghusl refers to giving of bath to the deceased, and kafan refers to shrouding of the deceased. What is kafan? Shrouding of the deceased. The law with respect to these things is that they are essential, wajib, alal kifaya, upon a sufficing basis. There are some scholars who have considered it as being fard, alal kifaya as well. But with respect to the application of the law, whether it is wajib or fard, it means that it must be done. Alal kifaya, on a sufficiency basis, means that if one or a few people fulfills it, then everyone becomes absolved of that duty. But if no one does it, then all the Muslims becomes guilty of neglect of duty. Understand that? So if some Muslims were to bathe the deceased and shroud the deceased, then that fulfills the responsibility for all the Muslims. But if no one does it, then all the Muslims becomes guilty of that and can be considered as sinful. Okay? Now some books have even mentioned the reward of bathing the deceased, that 70 forgiveness will be written for that person. One of such forgiveness, if it is distributed, it will suffice for all of the creation. Okay? But at the end of it, we understand that it is a virtuous act that should be done. Now, who should bathe the deceased? So we are now getting prime for bathing. We want to know who should bathe the deceased. Firstly, the closest relatives of the deceased have the primary right to bathe the deceased. It is better that they themselves do it, okay, rather than you get someone else, because it is like fulfilling the final right of the person. Of course, the adult male should be bathed by males in his family. Like for instance, if a person passes away, a male, then the father, the son, the brother, they should be foremost in bathing of the person. And likewise, for an adult female, she should also be bathed by adult females as well. Those close relations, like for instance, you have a mother, her sister, her daughter, her aunts, in, with respect to relationship. Now, if it is that neither of them are wrong, then the person can be bathed by any other Muslim. Like for instance, you may have people at the funeral agency. They may do the bathing for a person, or there may be some members of the Jamaat, understand, who probably have been trained to do like that. They can do that responsibility. But you must have someone to bathe the deceased. And it must not be that you have males bathing females. That's not proper. Okay, it's not permissible. Males must bathe males, and females will bathe females. Okay? Now, even if it be that you have to pay someone as a wage or as a service to bathe the person so that the responsibility is fulfilled, then that will also be allowed. Okay? Of course, if a person accepts the salary, then whilst he will get a salary, he may not get the actual reward for doing the act, because there is something of sadaqah. You understand? When a person goes and help out in something, he gets a reward as though he is doing sadaqah. Okay, if you have to pay someone to do it, then that's not sadaqah, that's like a job that has been taken. But what I'm saying is that even if you have to pay someone, the rights of it will be considered as fulfilled. Right? Now, let's look at some scenarios. A man dies, and there is no one to bathe him. The only person there is his wife. Can she bathe him? Okay? The first thing that we must understand is that when death comes about, the marriage itself has come to its full termination. Okay? And if the male or the husband here dies, it is better, of course, that some other male bathes him. If there is no other male to bathe him, then it is permissible for the wife that she can bathe and shroud him. Okay? But not the other way around. If the wife dies, it is not permissible for the husband to bathe her. Okay? and shroud her by touching her and so on. If there is no one to fulfill this, then he can wear on a glove and he can do tayammum for her. Understand? In replacement of the ghusl. And that will suffice. And again, the basic shrouding should be done whereby her body is covered and whatnot. Okay? But he cannot go and take off the clothing and bathe and rub and so on, just as you would do with a male to a male or a female with a female. Okay? That marriage have come to an end, and he has no right to touch her and so on anymore. Understand that, everyone? So let me repeat this. If the male dies, the female has the allowance. If no one else to do it, she can perform it for him. Okay? Of course, there should be someone else, try to get someone else firstly. But if, on the other hand, if it is that the wife would have died, then the husband cannot touch her with his bare hands. What must he do? Is to perform tayammum in that case. Okay. If a minor die, if this minor is of such an age, minor meaning that they have not yet become what we consider to be baligh. They are not mature according to the Sharia. That is, they have not reached the age of 15, or in the case of males, they have not experienced nocturnal emission, a wet dream. And in the case of females, they have not experienced haid or menstruation. Okay? So they are before that stage. If they were to die, but they are of such an age that they attract the opposite sex, then in this state, it should be that males should bathe males and females should also bathe, females should bathe females. Okay, there should not be the mixing of the sexes there as well. So far we are going through some of the laws with respect to who can bathe, right? It is preferable, but it's not an essential thing that the person who is bathing the deceased be in wudu. Right? So it is best you're going to do a ritual, go and make wudu, but it is not compulsory. If you don't have wudu, the bathing of the person will be considered as valid. Okay? Of course, a person who is in a state of major ritual impurity, like for instance, a person in a state of sexual impurity, or a woman in haid, it is makruh, reprehensible, disliked, that they should do the ghusl for another person. Now it is important that when a person goes to bathe someone, if they would see any defect upon a person, for instance, say, I never thought this man had such a big tattoo on his back, boy. That you go and you announce it to everybody. Boy, that man have a big tattoo on his back. But you see, that is between you and him and Allah. Understand? Should not be that you go and you reveal defects of any person. Okay, to do that is, it is not fulfilling the trust that you owe to such a person. All right, so we are getting ready to start to bathe the deceased. There are certain things that we need to have. You must have a platform. You must have the shroud available. You must have some cleaning agents, like for instance, we use here the dong's leaf, soap, okay, towels, gloves, okay. These are things that we should have at our disposal. Camphor, incense, or utr. So a person now is about to start the bathing process. The first step is to treat the platform or the plank or the table that you are going to bathe the person. You use some incense, loban stick, agarbati as we say, and you pass it, as mentioned, 3, 5, or 7 times. Main thing is that it should be clean. Understand? But we can do it in that manner as well. We should put the deceased to lie such that the qibla is towards his right side. So if he's that he's lying, like in the masjid here, okay, the head will be towards the south, the feet towards the north, okay, because our qibla is towards the east. And you will place upon this person a coarse cloth beneath which a person should put on his gloves and whatnot and take off the clothing with which he would have died in. Okay, or that clothing that he has right now. So from beneath the cloth, you take out whatever clothing the person has. Fast tracking because time is going. You would clean the person's private areas, that is the front and the back, wash it out. Then he would proceed towards making wudu for the person. Okay? The wudu, normally when we start with a wudu, we start with our right hand, washing until the wrist. But this is not done for the deceased because he is not going to use his hand to wash his own body. Okay, you are doing that for him. We do that because the hand is the instrument for cleaning ourselves. So the first thing you do is to wash our hands. Okay? But in this case in particular, what you would have is someone is doing it for the deceased, so that person's hand and so on should be clean. Good? So he'll wash his hands. He'll start by washing the person's face. So the deceased face will be washed firstly. In washing of the face, he will take a cotton swab or so, not swab, piece of cotton clump, okay, and he will wipe the inside of the mouth. Now he will not pour water into the person's mouth and shake up his head as he is gargling him. No, do not do that. Now it's not that because you fear that you're going to drown him. You know that already. But the water will go down to the stomach, isn't that so? Okay, and then when you're moving and so on with the shroud, it will soil the shroud. So what is done instead of actually washing them out is that we will take a piece of cotton, wet it, and wipe the inside of the mouth, the teeth, the gums. Likewise, the nostril. You'll do the same thing with the nostril. Okay? Just as you would have done that to wipe it, we can take another piece to soak up the water at the same time. Then we'll proceed to washing the hands up to the elbow right and then left 3 times. You do massage of the head, wipe the head with the wet hand, and then he would wash the feet up to the ankles. So the wudu is completed. Okay? The next step is that he will then wash the hair and the beard of the person, and for this you can use soap, okay, or like the water from the warm water from the boiled dong's leaf, or so that you would have. Okay, you use that, you apply it on the head, and you wash it out properly, the beards as well. Now, before you do this, as I said, you put some cotton into his mouth and leave it there, as well as into his nostril, so that in the washing of the hair and the beard and so on, water doesn't get into his mouth. So we understand the process, and just recalling quickly, you take off the clothing by putting a cloth above the person from beneath with a glove or so. Then after that, you wash his private parts, front and back. Then you make wudu for the person, the face, wipe the mouth, the nostril, wash the hands to the elbows, make massage of the head, wash the feet. After that, then you wash the hair and the beard of the person. Then you turn the person, okay, to his left side, such that the right is on top. Okay, so a person is lying down, okay, and as I am giving the example, his head is towards the south, so we will turn him in such a way that his face now is facing towards the west, and the right side is on top. You will use the water that has been boiled with the dong's leaf and pour it over his body 3 times, rubbing and so on as the case may be, enough such that the water reaches to the bottom area, okay, the left side that is on the platform. Then you do it the other way, such that you turn him on his right side, such that the left side is on top. Okay? So now he will be facing towards the east. Okay? he'll be facing towards the east, and you do the same thing. You throw the water on top of him with the dong's leaf. Now, instead of that, we can use warm water with soap, okay, because the objective is to increase cleanliness, understand, to wash properly. So you wash, and remember, do not remove the cloth from the private area of the person, okay? That has to remain. Okay, for a male, from his navel to his knees, and for a woman, with woman, the same area. Understand? That must always remain there whilst washing. Then the person is placed on his back. You know, he is facing on his back with his head facing upwards. And you place your hand behind his back and slightly lift him up close to a sitting posture. So after you would have washed both sides, because I said you turn him on his left side, the right on top, you wash, turn him the other side. Now he's on his back with his face upwards. Slightly raise him closer to the sitting posture. And here now, slightly massage the stomach from on top, pushing downwards. Now, if there is any bowel movements, urine, feces, and so on coming out from him, this is just to be washed away. And it should not be a meal whereby we think that we have to redo the wudu or the ghusl. Okay, that is, you don't have to do that now. You have fulfilled that already. Now we're just trying to clear out the stomach. We don't have to redo the ghusl for the person if anything comes out. All we do is to wash out the person. Good? After you are convinced that it is washed out and it's clean now, you wash the private areas. You have water of camphor that should be ready. And just as we did initially by turning him on his left side so that the right side is above, we do likewise. So the right side is above, he is facing towards the west in our situation here. And you pour this camphor water over his entire body. So much, 3 times at least, so that the water reaches to the bottom, and we can do it the other way as well if we are not convinced that it has reached. Okay? Now basically, the washing is completed at this stage. So the main ghusl is complete. After this, person should have a towel or whatever cloth for drying. You dry him out. Do not remove the cloth above his private area. You should have another platform or cot upon which you spread your. Yeah. There should be like one main person bathing, the other should just be assisting, helping lift, bringing water, keeping the clothing in place and those type of things. But one main person. You don't want too much of people interfering and so on. Right? And even then too, if it is that they have to touch an area of the private area, they need to have on a glove as well. Okay? Now, we have to prepare the shroud. Preparation of the shroud, you need to know what is the shroud for male and for female. The sunnah shroud for a male consists of 3 pieces of cloth. The sunnah shroud for a female consists of 5 pieces of cloth. So for a male is how much? 3. And for a female, 5. Okay? For a male, we have what is called the lifafa, or the sheet. Right? Sometimes we call it the chadar. Understand? It's a big sheet. What is the length of this? It is usually about 2 feet more than the actual height of the person. So as an example, if a person is 6 feet in height, then this cloth should be about 8 feet. Okay? About 8 feet. So that's the first cloth. The second cloth is what we call the izar. It's like the middle cloth. This also, the dress I mentioned should be the same length like that of the lifafa. So it's about 8 feet in the example. If a person is 6 feet, about 8 feet as well. And then we have another that is called the qamis or the kurta, as it's called. It's the inner layer of cloth. Now what is normally done, if you watch my note here, right? The length of it is from the shoulder to the calf area of the person. Now, if the shoulder to the calf area, if you measure that for the 6 feet person, let's say that comes up to how much? 4.5 feet, right? I mean, let's say his head and the foot is a 1.5 feet. Yeah, long neck, right? So let's say it is 4.5 feet, right? Then you will have a cloth that is around 9 feet in length, or a little more, about 9 feet. Because what is done is that it is folded like this. It is folded, and then a slit is made in the middle. Now, when we are spreading it on the cut, on the platform for shrouding purpose, the first thing that is spread on the table or the floor is the lifafa, right, the full length. Then above that goes the izar. And then upon that will be the lifafa. But the lifafa will be such that we have two parts, the upper and the lower part with the slit in the middle, or what we call the neck piece, right? The top part of it is folded up and left above the area that you suspect the head is going to fit, place. And the lower part is spread out in the middle of the kafan, the izar, in this case here. Now the objective is that when you place the person on the clothing, all that is necessary is that we take the extra from that we have placed above the head and we pull it down over him, and the slit that you would have made in the middle, the head goes through that. So it becomes like a kameez. It becomes like a kurta. Understand that? There is no sewing, there is no stitching and so on for it. So what you have happening is that the under part, there is the covering from the area of the calf. Then the top part comes over his head now. The neck and the head goes through that slit, and it comes on top of him, and it reaches the same area. There is a slight little area amount that you give like for shoulder space and whatnot. So I say about 9 feet. In the example, I gave it 4.5 feet on either side. You understand? You give a few inches for like the shoulder, so that both of them would finish like half of the calf area. That's the first thing for the meal. And that is done. And after that is done, the izar is now wrapped upon the person. Now, when we put the kameez, the cloth that was there covering the person, we should now take it off. Right? Because the kameez is now covering the person. It's now covering his private area. So the cloth from beneath, we pull it out. We have the izar and the lifafa. These are the two long sheets. The lifafa is the last one. The izar is the middle one. So now we have reached the point of the izar. The izar is to be placed such that the left comes first on top of the person, and then the right side comes on top. So remember that. It is like if you are going to place your hand for saladin, and left and then right. In a like manner, we should place and wrap the cloth upon him. The left side comes upon him, and then the right side comes on top of him, overlapping it. Then the lifafa, which is the final sheet, that is to place in a similar manner. The left side placed over him, and then the right side is to be placed over him as well. Basically, the shrouding of him, that is the main shrouding. Now, before we would have wrapped the izar, then we can take like itar and kamfa and so on, and rub it on the places of sajda that you would have. Okay, so this is before the izar, right? I missed out this just now. You place like itar and so on, take some itar, place on the place of sajda, the forehead, the nose, the hands, understand? The knees, those areas you can place the beards as well. Okay, you can place like kanfa that is grounded, and itar as well can be placed on these areas. Right, so that is with respect to the males. What about the sisters now? What it is that they will do? The sisters, remember, they have 5 pieces. The same 3 pieces that we mentioned here for the males, they also have it. And along with that, they will have 2 additional pieces. One additional piece is what is known as the cinnaband, or the chest cover. A chest cover. The length of that is really from the chest, above her bosom area, to her thighs, midway of her thighs. Okay? Some have considered that it can even go beyond the knees and so on, no problem. Okay? It can even go beyond the knees. It should be long enough such that it can wrap the entire body, as the case may be. So that's the fourth piece, a cinnaband or a chest cloth. And the fifth piece she would have is like a orni, a hair cover piece for the top part of her body. Now, I've mentioned it should be about 4.5 feet. Some scholars have mentioned that about 4.5 feet should be wide enough that it covers the entire area of the head and her bosom, down to the area of her hands, as the case may be. Right? Should be around that length as well. Now, with respect to preparing the shroud for the female, firstly, the lifafa goes. The lifafa. Then, the cinnaband. So, think about this as the table. You spread out the lifafa, which is the widest or the longest piece. Right? Then the cinnaband is to be placed. The cinnaband is the chest cloth. Estimate, you should have an estimate like where this is going to fit on her. Right? You're looking at the area from her bosom to her thighs or knees then. Where that will fit in the, when she is placed upon this table. Then upon that, there will be the izar. On top of the izar, there is the qamis. Now, some scholars have considered you can put the orni as part, spread it out, or that could be placed on top. Understand? But the 4 pieces of cloth has to be laid out on the table. So what are they again? The lifafa, then the cinnaband, then the izar, and then the qamis. Remember, the qamis is the one that we fold with the slit for the neck. Right? So that will be on the upper part of the shroud. So from the table that she was bathed on, her body is now dried up and so on, she is then placed on this table that has a shroud already prepared. As she is placed there, the qamis now comes over her, just as you did with the males. Okay? It was wrapped up, half of it was wrapped up and left at the side of the head. It is now brought in front of her, over her on the top, and the head goes through the slit that was made. So it now resembles like a kurta. Understand it? And it goes straight down to her area of her calves. When this is done, then her hair is to be taken, parted. There is no combing or braiding, anything of that nature. And it should be placed on top of her bosom. Okay? Same day you can place camphor on the places of sajda for her, or incense and so on can be used there. Of course, you will not go and use anything that has alcohol. Okay? Those things that are not allowed when we are alive doesn't become allowed now that a person is dead. Okay? And then the cloth that is underneath the qamis is the izar. The izar is in place, again left, then right side. So you're folding like this. Left, as though you're in salana. Left first and then right on top of it. Likewise with the shroud. You have the cinnaband. Before the cinnaband and these are the orni is placed that covers the entire area of the head, her bosom, that goes straight to the area of her hand. It is not necessary that this be placed such that it is wrapped around her. Understand? It's just a matter of covering the area of the head and so on properly. Good? Then the izar. Upon the izar now there's the cinnaband that is placed, that the kind of loin cloth. On top of this comes the final cloth, which is the lifafa. Now, I mean to say I'm speaking, if it is that you don't know about this from before, to retain all of this is plenty. Okay? And it will require some research and some studying on your part as well. Let's call this the first step towards that, inshallah. Okay? The first step towards that, because I'm sure you would also want to get the reward of bathing, and even if there is someone there and close to you, you will know how to do it at the same time, right? Or you may be placed in a situation that there is no one, you have to do it, you have a good idea. So it is something that we should learn. Basically, the shroud is prepared. And now that bathing and the shrouding is done, the next step is Janazah and burial. All right, good question. So he's asking, what about the excess cloth? We say a person is 6 feet, we say 8 feet of cloth, okay? It should be such that you have 1 foot of cloth extension by the foot side and 1 foot on the head side. Now, if there's a fear of the shroud opening, the person might be bigger, understand? Then what you do is you tie that extra piece of cloth with a piece of string, understand? You cut some cloth string or so, and you tie it by the area of the foot, the area of the head that is above the, beyond the head, and one can be tied even in the middle. If you don't fear that, then there is no need for it to. Also, with that extra cloth, it helps when moving the body, especially when it is that you have to place the body inside of the grave. That a person could hold that extra cloth on the area of the foot and the head, and someone supporting basically the waist, the middle area, and it can be easily set down inside of the grave. Okay? Because not everybody would actually bury with a coffin itself or the box. The correct thing is to actually place the body itself rather than put in a box. You follow? So that is what the extra cloth there for. That is the hikmah behind that. Of course, the nature of the cloth, you don't go and buy the best cloth. Understand? If a person already have cloth, there is no problem, you can use that. Whilst white might be the best color, even if you have other color, you can use it. Of course, male should not use like saffron and red color and those type of things. A female can use it. So it is not compulsory that you must use white. Normally, whenever we have a janazah, it's white. Okay? Of course, white is the preferable color. But sometimes a person may already have something. He can use that as well. Okay? A person might do Hajj and he has the ihram, he can even bury in that as his shroud. Yeah. Right. The nature of the cloth, it should not be, as I said, too expensive. Cotton cloth is good. Okay? At the same time, you don't want to use such a cheap cloth that as soon as you hold this salvage cloth, the body busts through it. Understand? So I'm a very humble boy. I'm going to buy too much thing. Yeah. And as Maulana is reminding me here, a person should maintain that same kind of standard like you in his normal lifetime then. Okay? At the same time, even though a person might be very wealthy and wearing the most exquisite clothes, it doesn't mean that you must buy the best of clothes too. A moderate, something of a moderate nature. Yeah. If it is that a person uses the ihram for Hajj, it's allowed. There is no problem with it. Yes. Now, even in some books, you see that a question comes that if a person buys his ihram or buys his cloth and he soak it in Zamzam water and allow it and dry it off and so on, that if it is allowed. Now, of course, a person shouldn't do that thing, that is a ritual that has to be done. Okay? But he wants to do it because of thawab or whatnot, and he feels that this is good for him. MashaAllah, it is allowed because it is a valid cloth. You understand? So it can be used. Well, there is no problem in preparing a shroud from before. Whether you want to send for it from Pakistan, from India, whichever, you understand? There is no problem. A person can keep his shroud prepared and inform the family that when I die, you should shroud me in this. Of course, it is makruh to dig a grave and prepare it for yourself. You understand? Can't do that. A person who, buried in the same clothing that he would have died in, he can be buried, but, like for instance, in the case of a martyr, a person who has become shaheed, who have been killed in the path of Allah, okay? Then the clothing will not be removed. He will not be given any ghusl, any bath, but he is buried with the same clothing upon which he died. Okay, so in that case, yes. Now, if a case exists that a person doesn't have any other clothing except that particular clothing that he would have died in, okay, he doesn't have anything, then it fulfills what is known as that kafan that is daruri, which is the necessary kafan now. Understand? You have a kafan that is, according to the sunnah, that is 395. You have a kafan that is, which is called kifaya, sufficient, a sufficient one, which is like 2 kafan for a male, 3 for a female, and then you have that kafan, that shroud, that is necessary, at least 1 piece of cloth to cover the body. So in the case that a person doesn't have anything excepting the clothing that he would have died in, then that becomes necessary to at least to cover the body, because covering of the aura and everything becomes essential. Okay? Alright, so we are now ready for janazah. The janazah, the body is to be laid. What is the method of laying the body for the janazah? Okay? You see, all the time we have been mentioning about laying the body in the manner that, like for instance in Trinidad here, where you have the Qibla towards the east, the head would be towards the south, and the feet towards the north. The body is to be laid in that same manner. Good? In other words, a simple way of doing it is that when we lay the body, the right side of the body should be the direction of the Qibla. You all get that? That is the basic principle. That when you lay the body, when the performance of the janazah, the right side of the body, the right hand side, that side is the direction of the Qibla. Good? So a person now, the Imam, he would stand at the area of the chest. Now this is the law according to the Hanafi Mazhab, okay, for both males and females. Okay? That he should stand at the area of the heart, the chest area. Because that is the place where the seat of Iman, at the heart. Understand? So that's the position of the Imam. He would stand at that position. And the basic performance of janazah, you know, it's very simple. Janazah has 2 fars, and everybody can do this. The 2 fars are, 1, to stand to perform the janazah upon a clean place, and the second thing is to utter 4 takbirs. Everybody know takbirs here? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And to give 2 salams, the salams is wajib, essential. And everybody know that as well. The same salam that we would have for salah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Alright, so I'll show you all, and I'll mention to you all the method of doing it in a little while. Continue. Okay. Now when the Imam stands, his intention would be that he is performing the salat of janazah for the sake of Allah. Know that. We do not pray to the deceased. Understand that? We do not pray any salah to any individual. We are performing salatul janazah to Allah, and also as a dua on behalf of the mayyit, on behalf of the dead person. Okay, so in Arabic you have nawaitu an usalli salatul janazah lillahi ta'ala wa du'a'an lil mayyiti, that I intend to perform salatul janazah for the sake of Allah and as a means of dua on behalf of the deceased person. The followers, they will add to it following the lead of the Imam. Okay, so the Imam, this is the Imam intention, and those who are following the Imam, they would make the intention that, you know, following the lead of the Imam. The method of janazah is that the Imam, as well as the Muqtadis, the Imam will first say Allahu Akbar, lifting his hands to the side of his ears. Okay? And the Muqtadis will also say Allahu Akbar, of course, softly. You can probably just whisper. It should not be that they just say it in your mind without the movement of the lips. Your lips must move. Okay? So you say Allahu Akbar softly for yourself. And you follow the Imam. Then the hand is placed where we normally place the Salah. And the Thana is recited. So you normally fold it beneath the navel or so. It is placed there. And the Thana is done. What is the Thana? Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa tabarakasmuka wa ta'ala jadduka. And there's an additional piece. Wa jalla thanauka. That is the only additional piece. You have the normal Thana from Salah that we recite. But there's the additional piece here now of wa jalla thanauka. Wa la ilaha ghayruka. After saying this, the Imam again will say Allahu Akbar. Upon saying Allahu Akbar, there will be no raising of the hands anymore. Okay? So the only time we'll raise hands is for the first takbir. First takbir. And everyone afterwards, the hands will not be raised. Okay? After the second takbir, the Darul Sharif is recited. The same Darul Sharif that we recite in Salah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. After the Darul Sharif recited, Imam again will say Allahu Akbar, no raising of the hands, and then the dua is recited for the mayat. There is one dua that is recited for males and female, but adults. So all adults, either male or female, the same dua is recited. And there's another dua for children and minors. Okay? There is a dua. I'll go through it quickly. Inshallah, you all should make a little effort in learning this. These duas. Right? Quickly, what do we have? Allahumma aghfir li hayyina wa mayitina wa shahidina wa ghaibina wa saghirina wa kabirina wa dhakarina wa unthana. Allahumma man ahyaytahu minna فأحيا على الإسلام ومن توفيته منا فتوفه على الإيمان. Okay? Inshallah, again, you all can check it back, check the meanings and so on. So this dua is said for adults, whether male or female, without any change. Let's finish off this. After this dua, then the fourth takbir will be made. Allahu Akbar. No raising of the hands. After which, immediately after which, the Imam will give salams. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Towards the right, towards the left, and the Janazah Salah is completed. That right of the deceased that we spoke about earlier, the performance of Janazah, that will be fulfilled by means of this. If it is that you don't know the duas, you can still join. Just utter the takbir softly when the Imam says it. Okay? And your Salatul Janazah will also be fulfilled. Now, if it is that the deceased is a child, minor, then there is a little change of the dua. Instead of the dua, Allahumma aghfir li hayyina wa maytina, there is the dua, Allahumma ja'alhu lana faratan wa ja'alhu lana ajran wa dhukhra wa ja'alhu lana shafi'a wa mushaffa'a. And there's a slight change of that same dua if it is a female. Okay, instead of Allahumma ja'alhu, you say Allahumma ja'alha. Okay, and in the ending, instead of saying waj'alhu lana shafi'a, you say waj'alha lana shafi'ataw wa mushaffa'a. Check it back. Okay? Now when we have finished this, the Janazah is complete. Just some important points. One, we must ensure that the area that we are standing is clean. Many people stand to perform Salatul Janazah with their shoe or their slipper on. If you have on your shoe and you have on your slipper, then the law goes with what is beneath your shoe. So if under your shoe is unclean, I mean, say you are standing on something that is unclean, it will not be proper. Understand that? So you must ensure that the place that you are standing is clean. a simple advice is simply take off your shoe or your slipper and stand on top of it if you know that the top of it, the top surface of it is clean. Okay? Or top of your slipper. If you know that on top of your slipper is clean as well, you just stand without any straps or so inside of your feet. So you are on it rather than your feet is inside of it. Understand that? So once that the top of it is clean, then what is considered is what is beneath your foot now, which is the top of your shoe, which is clean. And it will be considered as valid. Okay, so you have to be careful about that. Another thing is that suppose now a person reaches late for the janazah. And this question is often asked. What must a person do in this case? You reach when 2 takbirs have already been completed by the imam. And he is moving on to the 3rd takbir now. You now join to the line. Should you just jump into the line, Allahu Akbar? No. You must wait from the time you join the line, wait for the next takbir from the imam. So you have already completed 2. He is reciting the Darul. Okay? You wait on the 3rd takbir from the imam. When he says the 3rd takbir, Allahu Akbar, you now, since this is your first one, Allahu Akbar, you start with your takbir and you join the imam. And for every, well, he would only have one more for the 4th. When he recites that, you say that as well. After you would have completed the salams, you do not complete your salams at that same time. Recite 2 additional takbir, because you need to have 4 takbir altogether, isn't that so? Which is compulsory. You recite the 2 addition that you would have missed, and then you give your own salams. This must be done before the janazah is lifted. Okay? It must be done before the body is moved. So if you feel that you're taking long with your du'as, then just say takbir, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. And you would have your janazah salah. Follow? The most fitting person to lead the janazah, if it is that in Islamic state, will be the sultan, the king, the main ruler or the representative. In the absence, you have like the imam of the locality. Okay? If it is that he is not there, then the representative, the main wali of the deceased. The main wali or the main guardian of the deceased. He has the foremost right of leading it, so long as he knows the method of performing it. Even though a person might be a representative, if he doesn't know it, then he shouldn't lead. Understand? You must have a person who is knowledgeable of the manner of performing the janazah. There are other laws with respect to that. I will not touch on some of those. Yeah. A person goes to perform janazah and his wudu is broken. Right? Remember, you must have taharat, purity, to reach salatul janazah. So you go with wudu. If a person goes there and you realize that a janazah is about to take place, and he is in a state of either minor ritual impurity or major ritual impurity. In other words, he is in need of bath, and the janazah is about to start. And when you look around, you're not seeing any tap or water close by. Okay? What must he do in this situation? He must perform tayammum and perform the janazah. Okay? Tayammum, that is where we do purity by means of the sand, the dust, piece of stone. Okay? One rubbing, you rub the entire face. And the second rubbing, you rub both hands up to the elbows. Okay, that's another method we have to learn, the proper method for doing that. Right? And you can join the janazah salah. Suppose now, there is more than one janazah at the same time. There are 3 methods in which it can be done. Firstly, each one can be performed separately. Right? But suppose now there are so much of people you have to perform janazah for, it is difficult. Then how are you going to line up the body for that purpose? One is that you place the body alongside each other. So example, this is one janazah here, then you put the other one like this, and you continue in that manner. So you have like one long line. Where would the imam stand? The imam will stand by the breast area, the chest area of the one who people consider to be like the most pious, most righteous. Okay? That is the principle for all of these. So that is one way. The second way is that it is placed like in a line in this manner. So you have janazah here, you put one here, and you continue like that, as though it is not like from the foot head going on the road, but rather side to side, such that all of their heads are lined up together, their chests are lined together, and their feet are lined together in one line. The person who the imam will stand next to, the front person, the person who is the furthest position, should be the person who is most righteous or pious. Okay? There is still another method for that. If you have them, you could put it in such a way that you have the first janazah is placed, and the second one, his head should be by the shoulder of the second, of the first, sorry. Then the third, his head should be by the shoulder of the second, and it goes on like that. So now you come in a kind of slant, like a step they're making. Understand that? Again, the imam will stand next to the person who is considered to be like the most righteous from amongst them. Any question as we continue? Alright, so there are different, good, mashallah, good question. So amongst the many people who have died, okay, amongst the janazah, there are adults, males, females, boys, girls, okay? Now, of course, the imam will stand firstly close to the males, then a distance away would be like the boys, then females, you know, furthest away from him. Now at this point, the imam, after he would have read the dua for the adults, he would then recite the dua for the children. So this is after the third takbir, he would recite the dua, Allahumma kfirli hayna wa maitina, that one. When he's finished with that, he can recite the dua for the children immediately after, and then takbir, the fourth takbir, and salams. When the janazah is finished, the next step is to bury the person, right? There is no dua to be recited and made when the salams is done. As the practice is an innovation, and you must understand that the actual janazah salah itself is a form of dua. And believers, we act with respect to how the Sharia prescribed things for us. And this is the prescribed way of making dua for the mayyit. Understand that? So after the Salatul Janazah is done, the body should be taken as quickly as possible towards the graveyard for the purpose of burial. Okay? When you go there, the burial should be done. Inshallah, Maulana, wrap up there. Okay, so we have basically done the actual Janazah itself. As I said, there are a lot of things. This is a topic that can take weeks if you start to go into details into. They are trying to do something in one session, which is very, very difficult. Okay? So I ask your pardon if it is that you perhaps would not have fully understand certain things. Of course, you can get in contact with Maulana Sahib here. He can help you out in areas, but it is something that we should endeavor to learn properly. Okay? Learn it properly. And Janazah at all times should be a reminder for us that one day we also have to go through that door of death, and that we should make preparations for it. When you attend Janazah, that should be our thought, our mind. Now there are other things that can be discussed, other masails with respect to different types of disease. A person, an animal has eaten, stillborn babies, person drowned, you know, how are we going to form Janazah for these different individuals? Okay? You have laws and masails with respect to carrying of the deceased to the cemetery, the method of resting the coffin there, how to take it out, how to place it inside, the different types of graves, the procedures that should take place in the graveyard. Okay? What are to be followed up afterwards? Is it that we should continue and do like 3 days and 40 days and those type of things? These things are not proper. Okay? There are certain acts that we see and we do that are part of our Sharia, and there are certain things which are bid'ah and innovation that should be left out. Okay? So many things, especially when coming to Janazah and the final rites of a deceased. A person does want to do everything possible because they think that this is the last thing I could do for him. But sometimes we overdo. And in overdoing, we do the wrong thing in process. Okay? So, when I again I ask Allah to bless you for your patience in listening and so on. So there's some of the questions that were asked, mashallah. I know there are much more questions. Perhaps I would have opened up much more questions for you all. So now that's a good step in that we should try to find the answers to those things. Okay, so perhaps some subsequent lecture we can continue with the rest of our discussion, inshallah. Okay, assalamu alaikum wa akhiru da'wan alhamdulillah bil alamin.
شاطئ في يديه كفارة للخطايا وشاطئ في يديه كفارة للخطايا ذهبت يوما إليه بأدمعي وشقايا ورحت ألقي عليه تبتلي وهدايا